Egor Demin started off the season lighting up BYU's early non-conference opponents, and his buzz grew in a major way because of it. But as the season progressed and the competition got tougher, his flaws were more apparent and brought more concerns in his NBA projection. He's a 6'9" guard / wing from Russia who spent time in the Real Madrid organization before heading stateside, and he put up about 10, 4, and 6 this year as a freshman, showing off terrific passing skills and fluidity as a mover that has always stood out. Now, serious questions in his handle, his ability to draw two consistently, and shoot the ball have made his projection as both a point guard and in finding a role much less of a guarantee. But his skill set as a big playmaker is worth a bet at some point, and for a lot of people that point is still the lottery. Now, the passing is easily the most intriguing piece of Egor's game. He's inarguably one of the most gifted passers in the class, if not the most gifted. He averaged about 5.5 assists a game, with one of the higher assist rates we've seen from a freshman near his size. And that stature allows him to see over the top of defenses and find angles that others just can't get to. He spent most of his time in the pick and roll and demonstrated a good feel for his reads and showed off great velocity to whip passes around the court. And he also has some nuance and manipulation using fakes to help open up passing angles. He can hit the roller for lobs, he'll fit a pocket pass through a tight window when he needs to, and has pretty good touch in these situations. And he's definitely at his best making passes on the perimeter as opposed to the interior. Some of these whip passes across the court, be it a live dribble, skip, or an overhead look, were pretty wild to see and definitely advanced. Now, he did throw him a little hard at times and some of his teammates lost the ball, but there just aren't that many guys who can pull these off. Now, Egor is also naturally unselfish and does a great job of anticipating the extra pass. You can guarantee he's looking to move the ball at all times, even to a fault where he picks up the ball early or doesn't look for his own, but he's always got his eyes up in transition, making outlets, and these little tossbacks are what I like to call rondos. Now, the key piece for him is going to be improving as a ball handler and as a scoring threat to put more pressure on defenses and become a more effective playmaker, which would earn him more responsibility like he had this year. We'll detail a little more of that later, but from a pure knowledge, skill set, and unselfishness standpoint, he certainly has all the tools to be a high-level passer in more than one spot or situation on the floor. And if you're drafting him, you kind of got to let him rock out with the ball in some capacity because this stuff is so impressive.
This UCF team has proven they can play with anybody. Oh! The big team, Kingston Fleming's a top 5 point guard. Good up fake
for BYU. Don't force anything.
Demin creates an angle to get it. Shot clock down to 10 for the Cougars. Demin leads.
Demin to Keita. Nice reach.
In front of that official is going to get called.
Oh, what a throwdown.
He feels the defenders come.
Demin with the lob.
He picks up his third. He's out for the rest of the first half.
Scott Drew, one of the most lenient with 2 fouls in the first half.
Off balance a little bit, so I'm driving in, and then I elevate, and they can't get to it, even at their size.
Mag up for 3. Got it.
Yeah, I like Amir Ali, little 6'8" freshman, his high energy. He's going to have a big, if they want to have a win tonight, they got a big effect from Ali.
Behind the back, Demin kick, Mag 3.
Well, they didn't guard Hall in transition, so he'll shoot the 3 and make the 3.
They head to Baker. He'll answer back.
Harris and Demin, and a turnover by Kansas. Leaking out, Mawit Mag, the reverse line.
BYU. How about that drop pass? Egor Demin to Richie.
Now Demin behind the back, Nell in open lane to the cup.
Trying to feed the post. Wisconsin throws it away. Demin leaves it to the lane.
Just out of control. They'll stop, jump stop, and get yourself settled.
Fade set. They are aiming high, and they're playing with great tenacity thus far.
Saunders for 3.
Saunders, the kick out, the extra pass, Hall for 3. And of course, their last couple 4 or 5 games with Phillip, which keep forcing.
At the break, Bošković. The touch to Saunders.
Now, the rest of his game is where the questions start to roll in more, for me at least, but there are things to like from a tools perspective. He's a pretty intriguing mover who has nice strides and had positive moments putting those tools to use, particularly in the pick and roll. Like we said before, that's where he spent a lot of his time, and whenever he was able to come off of a drag screen, a DHO, or your regular old high or slot pick and roll, he showed the ability to take that advantage and turn it into a downhill drive, and when he got to the bucket, he did convert at a good clip. He likes using off-foot finishes to beat the big or the help at the bucket. He's a dominant right foot jumper despite being right-handed, which is unique, kind of that John Wall signature, and though he isn't the most physical guy in close yet or just in handling the ball, he'd have his moments as a driver that'll at the very least keep you intrigued, if not impressed in a significant way. When teams did close out hard to him or they got the ball moving, he could give you something on the closeout attack, and he has some upside as a straight line driver and in using his size and length to find an open opportunity. Now, it wasn't nearly the same type of volume as the pick and roll stuff, and it'll take a bit more of a mentality shift to exercise more of this, I think, but tools wise and thinking about what he could be, it's at least worth mentioning. He's a definite work in progress as a scoring threat and has some spots that'll determine a ton of his NBA success, but I wouldn't rule out him being able to get more out of himself here, and if you're high on him, you gotta have a pretty good belief in this part of his game continue to ascend and him becoming more threatening as a driver.
Love what he's doing here in Provo. Demin taking it with the left hand.
Inside 6 minutes. Egor Demin on the drive, right to the bucket. On the drive, and what a Trevor Basket as well. Colorado Mesa transfers Egor Demin down the whistle.
Demin on the attack, and he throws it.
With Sherrill. Here goes Demin, fouled, and one.
They play well.
Egor Demin all the way to the basket.
Nell Demin down the lane, lays it up. He wants to control the tempo, make it a rock fight.
Demin into the paint, Demin to the basket. This time he wasn't to Mag. Back toward Demin. Demin speeds to the basket, reverses his foul.
Now, the biggest issue in Egor's game right now is his inability to create consistent advantages and handle the ball against significant pressure. He's very upright in his handle and doesn't have great counters. He had a high turnover rate and a tendency to pick up the ball early when he faced ball pressure, especially from those smaller guards who could get up into his handle. Now, the rim rate was fine in terms of his shot diet, but he was fairly passive. He doesn't get to the line that much or have much to offer in one-on-one situations on the perimeter. Now, zooming out, I actually think he's a little better at touching the paint than I've given him credit for most of the year, but it is a definite work in progress to put all the pieces together at the next level and turn some of those flashes into real consistent production throughout games. He also shot just about 25% on pull-ups and isn't very comfortable there beyond a few late clock stepbacks from three, which I actually thought were intriguing, but that not being a threat definitely makes this more difficult. Now, I hate sounding so negative because he's obviously being talked about as a first-round pick for a reason, but I think he's got a road ahead of him to become an NBA creator, and he'll need to get stronger and tighten up his handle first and just kind of work from there. Hopefully he gets put in a situation that gets him on the move but also allows him the freedom to learn from his mistakes. But in the league where guys like Amin Thompson, Dyson Daniels, Anthony Black, and Cason Wallace aren't primaries or even secondary options in some cases but were better than him here, it's likely going to be an uphill battle.
Fantastic job in his first year, already established his cultures, taking roots. Some of the guys I was sitting at having hits. At that mark. Yep. Sitting on 19.
They start just checking in as well. Along with Lewis, sets off the heel.
Egor Demin at the point. And he's being hounded already by Phil Russell. He's a big point guard. Big lead for West Virginia.
I want a 25% shooter. Every turnover, not this.
Got it up court to Demin. Demin, quick trigger.
Middle of the game. Alabama with 11 made threes already. Demin going to work on a man up and scores again.
In the shot clock, in the game clock. Demin. Yes.
10 of 20 right now. And that one was from deep by Youngblood. And Demin right there able to get it. And they're not. We're getting close to 8 minutes here. Demin. Jump stop, turn, and score.
Now, the advantage creation is going to dictate a lot in being able to unlock what is an impressive skill set as a passer, but he's going to have to shoot it better to just find a role in the NBA. He shot under 30% from 3 this year and was concerningly bad against good competition, and he doesn't give you much off the dribble and is far from a consistent threat in the pick and roll in both percentage and volume. Now, the numbers weren't awful overall off the catch, but even in his best stretches both this year and in the past, it's definitely been streaky. If he's not a primary and has to play off the ball more, which to me is likely, he's going to have to be able to knock down shots and attract closeouts. You look at that VCU tournament game, for example, they did a great job of making life tough on him as a ball handler from the opening tip, but it opened things up, gave him and his team more space to operate, and it ended up being one of the more impactful games of the year for him. And to me, that's close to the vision for him, best case. Now, the thing that's kept me from being completely out on him as a shooter or just an overall player, for better or worse, is his mechanics. We've seen a handful of players who were mechanically flawed in a way that was going to hinder their success, whether it's a slow load up, a hitch, or clunkiness off the bounce, but Egor doesn't have those same issues. Now, he's far from perfect, don't get me wrong, and when you shoot under 30% from 3 and 70% from the line, that sample does matter, but I don't think he's a complete non-shooter long term, and that gives him some wiggle room. It makes a potential swing on his talent a bit more viable.
On the court, Roxy, this has been a blast calling this game with you tonight, my friend.
Egor Demin.
We agree there's nothing wrong with that shooting form.
So that from the parking lot.
Pace and space. You know, they do it very quickly.
Saunders now, shot clock winding down. Demin.
Now, on the defensive end, he's someone that's interesting to talk about because he doesn't project to be great here, but he's also not bad in a significant way either. And because of his length and moments of off-ball activity, he has a much higher floor than your smaller guards or guys who are just at a severe athletic disadvantage. But starting there in help, he was pretty consistently engaged and clearly thinking through plays. The anticipation and aggressiveness isn't quite there to make him a plus guy as a playmaker, and he's not a help side rim protector or anything like that, but he's at least capable of playing the passing lane and getting the deflection. He should be able to take up space and be in the right spots consistently in time, so that is positive, but I wouldn't expect too much more than that. Now, on the ball, he's a bit further away. He's not a great lateral mover. He isn't giving you much ball pressure or just flying through screens, but I do think he's got enough to move around, and he held his own in matchups against smaller players in moments. He is going to have to gain weight and get stronger to hold up against NBA wings because that definitely showed up a few times. Now, the overall issue here is a lot of the other guys who were questionable creators or shooters were able to lean into the defense in a way that even if Egor exceeded expectations here, I'm not sure the impact will be quite at that level. But he should be able to match up with a couple positions, and even if he is picked on or is below average, it'll be tougher to fully convert just because he's 6'9" and doesn't have cinder blocks for feet.
Here's Grant Nelson, who was at his best in the Sweet 16 last year, and he opens up.
Stopped by Traore. Floater, Bradley.
Pierre.
Sharp. Shot clock is at 5. Easy.
Joseph, that could lead it.
The freshman best. And he throws it.
Now, Egor is someone that still has lottery interest and very well could end up there. I'm a bit lower on him than that, but I'd imagine that range goes from like the top 10 down into the early 20s for him, and the most likely would be somewhere in the teens. Offensively, I see him as more of a playmaking wing and someone that could run certain bench units and keep you organized. Some see a big league guard. I think he's just a little too far away for that, but you do have to give him the ball some, otherwise you just take the nearest 3-and-D guy. Defensively, I think he can be solid. He'll have to get stronger, but he should guard 3s and 2s and make enough plays to at least be neutral, though you won't expect a ton from him. In theory, his ceiling would be fairly high if he was able to hit on, some of the handle stuff in the shot, but if we're being realistic, high-level starter is a lot more attainable because he does have quite a bit to do to get there. But again, if he does at least shoot it at a better clip, I think he could be a rotation piece. If he continues to struggle from the outside while being a subpar advantage creator or someone that doesn't deserve lead guard usage, I'm not sure what that is, but the size and playmaking will probably find him enough opportunity and patience for several years in the league. Fit-wise, I prefer him on a team that would give him freedom, so we're talking the Brooklyns, the Washingtons, and Utahs towards the top of the list, but I also think teams like Miami, Minnesota, and Portland are also worth putting in that mix. Now, comparison-wise, the most obvious one that comes to mind is Josh Giddey. Now, Giddey's physicality, assertiveness, and overall production in the NBL give him an edge as a prospect, though I definitely prefer Demin's shooting mechanics and defense, but best case, the pitch is probably similar if he can get some teams to invest in him as a ball handler. I really don't like many others. They kind of feel lazy, but I guess role-wise, something like Joe Ingles or Kyle Anderson, yeah. Again, I don't really like any of these, so don't put too much weight into it. He is his own player. Egor Demin's special passing abilities and movement at 6'9" is always going to get people excited about his NBA upside, and it's enough for me to still see a potential contributor there, but lottery is a tougher sell. It's just so hard to be an NBA creator, and when the shot is a work in progress and the defense isn't something to fall back on, it then makes it harder to be confident in that player contributing. Now, he's still super young, and there's times I felt like I've been a little too critical of him. I just prefer some others with more substantial skills, at least in the lottery.